is mighty, and so are we. The task is mighty, and so are we. The task is mighty, and so are we. This is where we are called to be. This is where we are called to be. The land is holy, and so are we. The land is holy, and so are we. The land is holy, and so are we. This is where we are called to be. This is where we are called to be. The world is ready, and so are we. The world is ready, and so are we. The world is ready, and so are we. This is where we are called to be. This is where we are called to be. The tide is rising, and so are we. The tide is rising, and so are we. The tide is rising, and so are we. This is where we are called to be. This is where we are called to be.
Hello, welcome everybody. I am so impressed that you're here because it's so nice out. So welcome. I hope at some point you'll get to go outside. Either you have already or you will. I am gonna give us our first prompt to share in the chat where you're coming from, and on a scale of 1 to 10, how was your week? Feel free to explain or not, and just say hi and check in with yourself. Marcia is our Zoom host today if you need anything, and we have only one Sunday left of Zoom worship. So after next week, we return for spring. March 20th is the actual first day of spring. It's very exciting. And it'll be our first day back at Sky Lake. We are hoping to have a van available that day to take folks. It starts out at the Central Endicott Church. So if you are interested in getting a ride that first Sunday, and then we're hoping to have it available the first Sunday of every month. So March 20th, and then the first Sunday of April, the first Sunday of May, we'll have, and so on, we'll have that van. If you can get yourself to Central Endicott, you can get on the van there, but if you need to be picked up along the way, then I don't think they're going to go west, but as they make their way east to Sky Lake, they can pick folks up on the way. We also are in need of some welcomers. So I'm sharing a link in the chat where you can see the list of all the Sundays from now through the end of the year, or from March 20th, I should say, for folks to sign up just to be the person that welcomes folks as they come. So all you have to do is get there like 15, 20 minutes early, stand by the sign-in table, make sure people sign in, take a program. If they ask where the bathrooms are, point them in the right direction. It's very easy, but very important to make people feel welcome. And this is one of the things we're going to be really, we try to have a welcomer every Sunday, but we know after having the feedback survey that we did back in January, we know it's really important to have somebody there just to help first-timers to feel welcomed and comfortable. So feel free to sign up. If you know there's a Sunday you're going to be there, can be there a little bit early. That would be super helpful. And then we'll see it on a schedule. And if for some reason you sign up on a day that doesn't work, we can easily contact the people who have also signed up and see if they can switch. So help us to be welcoming to newcomers when we return to Sky Lake. And we're also excited about the Wild Spirit Retreat with Rich and Cheryl Lyon. It's going to be a great day at Sky Lake, April 9th from 10 to 4. Well, we still don't have the registration link from Sky Lake yet. I'm hoping this week we'll have it. So just save the date and let friends know about it if you know people who love the outdoors. We want them to be with us. I think everybody who's here is on our email list. And of course, you can go donate on the website to help keep supporting the work that we're doing and to help continue to bring people closer to God as we get out into nature. That's our goal, to help folks. And of course, to follow the Spirit through that connection with creation and adventure and working for restoration. So we're really excited. We did some tweaking to the in-person worship service. We're really hopeful that it's going to be a breath of fresh air in more ways than one when we return to worship in just 2 weeks. So I think that's it. Everybody's sharing. Everybody had a pretty good week. I'm with you, Valerie. Mine was pretty tumultuous. Why can't I say that word today? Wow. I just murdered that word. That's okay. Welcome. Let's center a little bit with a poem for our new focus that we're starting today, which you'll hear more about. But this is Wild Geese by Mary Oliver. We might have done this already, but when something's good, it doesn't matter how many times you hear it. So, Wild Geese. You do not have to be good. You do not have to walk on your knees for 100 miles through the desert repenting. You only have to let the soft animal of your body love what it loves. Tell me about despair, yours, and I will tell you mine. Meanwhile, the world goes on. Meanwhile, the sun and the clear pebbles of the rain are moving across the landscape, over the prairies and the deep trees, the mountains and the rivers. Meanwhile, the wild geese, high in the clean blue air, are heading home again. Whoever you are, no matter how lonely, the world offers itself to your imagination, calls to you like the wild geese, harsh and exciting, over and over, announcing your place in the family of things.
If you ever wander lonely through the woods, and everything that feels just as it should, you're part of life there, part of something good. If you've ever wandered lonely through the woods, ooh, if you've ever wandered lonely through the woods, have you ever stared into a starry sky? Lying on your back, you're asking why. What's the purpose? I wonder, who am I? If you've ever stared into a starry sky. Ooh, have you ever stared into a starry sky? Have you ever been out walking in the snow? Tried to get back where you were before. You always end up not knowing where to go. Ever been out walking in the snow? If you've ever been out walking, you would know. If you've ever been out walking, you would know.
Such a great song. We're so grateful for Kristen. So today's wisdom, I figured, we have one more week of Zoom. We might as well use the technology when we have it. So instead of just paraphrasing from a TED Talk, I cut it down. So A.J. Jacobs is the author of a book called The Year of Living Biblically. And he'll explain what that's about if you haven't heard about it. And I just want to note that this video is from like 2007, I think, which is around when the book came out as well. And it's kind of fun to see how different TED Talks used to be. It's much more like relaxed and way less polished than they are now, but it's still a great video, and I made it a little bit shorter, but it's still like 10 minutes, but it's really good stuff. So this is A.J. Jacobs on his year of living.
I thought I'd tell you a little about what I like to write, and I like to immerse myself in my topics. I just like to dive right in and become a sort of a human guinea pig, and I see my life as a series of experiments. So I work for Esquire magazine, but I think that the most profound and life-changing experiment that I've done is my most recent experiment, where I spent a year trying to follow all of the rules of the Bible, the year of living biblically. And I undertook this for two reasons. The first was that I grew up with no religion at all. As I say in my book, I'm Jewish in the same way the Olive Garden is Italian. So, not very. But I've become increasingly interested in religion. I do think it's the defining issue of our time, or one of the main ones. And I have a son. I want to know what to teach him. So I decided to dive in head first and try to live the Bible. The second reason I undertook this is because I'm concerned about the rise of fundamentalism, religious fundamentalism, and people who say they take the Bible literally, which is, according to some polls, as high as 45 or 50% of America. So I decided, well, what if you really did take the Bible literally? I decided to take it to its logical conclusion and take everything in the Bible literally without picking and choosing. The first thing I did was I got a stack of Bibles. I had Christian Bibles, I had Jewish Bibles. A friend of mine sent me something called a hip-hop Bible, where the 23rd Psalm is rendered as, "The Lord is all that," as opposed to what I knew it as, "The Lord is my shepherd." Then I went down and I read several versions, and I wrote down every single law that I could find. And this was a very long list, over 700 rules. And they ranged from the famous ones that I had heard of, the 10 Commandments, love your neighbor, be fruitful and multiply. So I wanted to follow those. And actually, I take my projects very seriously because I had twins during my year. So I definitely take my projects seriously. But I also wanted to follow the hundreds of arcane and obscure laws that are in the Bible. There's the law in Leviticus, you cannot shave the corners of your beard. I didn't know where my corners were, so I decided to let the whole thing grow, and this is what I looked like by the end. As you can imagine, I spent a lot of time at airport security. My wife wouldn't kiss me for the last 2 months, so certainly a challenge there. The Bible says you cannot wear clothes made of mixed fibers. So I thought, sounds strange, but I'll try it. You only know if you try it. So I got rid of all my poly-cotton T-shirts. The Bible says that if two men are in a fight and the wife of one of those men grabs the testicles of the other man, then her hand shall be cut off. So I wanted to follow that rule. That one I followed by default, by not getting in a fight with a man whose wife was standing nearby, looking like she had a strong grip. So, there's another shot of my beard. I will say it was an amazing year because it really was life-changing and incredibly challenging. And there were two types of laws that were particularly challenging. The first was avoiding the little sins that we all commit every day. I could spend a year not killing, but spending a year not gossiping, not coveting, not lying. I live in New York, and I work as a journalist. So this was 75, 80% of my day I had to do it. But it was really interesting because I was able to make some progress because I couldn't believe how much my behavior changed my thoughts. This was one of the huge lessons of the year, is that I almost pretended to be a better person, and I became a little bit of a better person. So it's that I had always thought, you change your mind and you change your behavior, but it's often the other way around. You change your behavior and you change your mind. So, if you want to become more compassionate, you visit sick people in the hospital and you will become more compassionate. You donate money to a cause and you become emotionally involved in that cause. So it really was cognitive psychology, cognitive dissonance that I was experiencing. The Bible actually talks about cognitive psychology, very primitive cognitive psychology. In the Proverbs it says that if you smile, you will become happier, which, as we know, is actually true. So I thought I would end by telling you just a couple of the takeaway, the bigger lessons that I learned from my year. The first is, thou shalt not take the Bible literally. This became very, very clear early on, because if you do, then you end up acting like a crazy person and stoning adulterers. Another lesson is that thou shalt give thanks. And this one was a big lesson because I was giving these prayers of thanksgiving, which was odd for an agnostic. But I was saying thanks all the time, every day. And I started to change my perspective. And I started to realize the hundreds of little things that go right every day that I didn't even notice, that I took for granted, as opposed to focusing on the 3 or 4 that went wrong. So this is actually a key to happiness for me, is to just remember, when I came over here, the car didn't flip over, I didn't trip coming up the stairs. It's, a remarkable thing. Third, that thou shalt have reverence. This one was unexpected because I started the year as an agnostic, and by the end of the year, I became what a friend of mine calls a reverent agnostic, which I love, and I'm trying to start it as a movement, so if anyone wants to join. The basic idea is whether or not there's a God, there's something important and beautiful about the idea of sacredness, and that our rituals can be sacred, the Sabbath can be sacred. This was one of the great things about my year, was doing the Sabbath, because I am a workaholic, so having this one day where you cannot work, that changed my life. So this idea of sacredness, whether or not there's a God. Thou shalt not stereotype. This one happened because I spent a lot of time with various religious communities throughout America, because I wanted it to be more than about my journey. I wanted it to be about religion in America. So I spent time with evangelical Christians and Hasidic Jews and the Amish. I'm very proud because I think I'm the only person in America to out-Bible talk a Jehovah's Witness. After 3.5 hours, he looked at his watch. He's like, I gotta go. Oh, thank you very much. Thank you. Bless you. So, but it was interesting because I had some very preconceived notions about, for instance, evangelical Christianity, and I found that it's such a wide and varied movement that it is difficult to make generalizations about it. There's a group I met with called the Red Letter Christians, and they focus on the red words in the Bible, which are the ones that Jesus spoke. That's how they printed them in the old Bibles. And their argument is that Jesus never talked about homosexuality. They have a pamphlet that says, here's what Jesus said about homosexuality. And you open it up and there's nothing in it. So they say Jesus did talk a lot about helping the outcasts, helping poor people. So this was very inspiring to me, and I recommend Jim Wallace and Tony Campolo. They're very inspiring leaders, even though I disagree with much of what they say. Also, thou shalt not disregard the irrational. This one was very unexpected because, I grew up with the scientific worldview, and what I was shocked was learning how much of my life is governed by irrational forces. And the thing is, if they're not harmful, they're not to be completely dismissed. Because I learned that I was doing all these rituals, these biblical rituals, separating my wool and linen. And I would ask these religious people, why? Why would the Bible possibly tell us to do this? Why would God care? And they said, we don't know, but it's just rituals and that give us meaning. And I would say, but that's crazy. And they would say, well, what about you? You blow out candles on top of a birthday cake. If a guy from Mars came down and saw, here's one guy blowing candles out, fire on top of a cake, versus another guy not wearing clothes of mixed fabrics, would the Martian say, oh, well, that guy, he makes sense, but that guy's crazy? So, no, I think that rituals are, by nature, irrational. So the key is to choose the right rituals, the ones that are not harmful. But rituals by themselves are not to be dismissed. And finally, I learned that thou shalt pick and choose. And this one I learned because I tried to follow everything in the Bible. And I failed miserably because you can't. You have to pick and choose. And anyone who follows the Bible is going to be picking and choosing. The key is to pick and choose the right parts. There's a phrase called cafeteria religion, and the fundamentalists will use it as, in a denigrating way. They'll say, it's just cafeteria religion. You're just picking and choosing. But my argument is, what's wrong with cafeterias? I've had some great meals at cafeterias. I've also had some meals that made me want to dry heave. So it's about choosing the parts of the Bible about compassion, about tolerance, about loving your neighbor, as opposed to the parts about homosexuality as a sin, or intolerance, or violence, which are very much in the Bible as well. So we have to, if we are to find any meaning in this book, then we have to really engage it and wrestle with it. Thank you so much for letting me speak.
So, quite a bit of wisdom from A.J. Jacobs today. And now we're going to get some wisdom from nature. Did you want to introduce anything, Rich?
Sure. As I speak, there are geese flying overhead. I don't know if you can hear them calling. Canada geese. And Fred and Wilma are sitting on top of the church building roof. Fred and Wilma are pigeons, by the way. They've been here for 2 years at least, so I'm surrounded by neighbors. I'm immersed in nature's community between the birds and the red maple tree right next to me, the balsam fir that I have just stuffed in the fence behind me. And the same goes for you, whether you're inside of your house or outside. We find ourselves inextricably connected with nature's community. It's a beautiful and life-giving thing, and something that we really honestly can't have any other way. Your well-being and my well-being is intertwined with the health of the ecosystems within which we live. That is a physical, mental, emotional, psychological, and spiritual truth. And connected with that truth. Now, I know you're wanting something warm, something subtropical. I'm sorry, I didn't prepare that for you today. You got to get that fix on your own time, because what I did decide to highlight in today's video is what is perhaps the first great insect emergence of the season that probably started about a month ago, when we were still going through the depths of winter. Stoneflies. I live in between the Susquehanna and Chemung rivers. And if you have a body of water near your house, you may be able to catch the latter end of the stonefly emergence over your way. And so let's take a look at the stonefly emergence and some of the relationships in nature that are connected with that.
Hi, my name is Rich Hanlon. I'm your Wild Neighbors Nature Connection Nature Guide, and today, as I make my way along the Cuyahoga Trail in Athens, Pennsylvania, along the Susquehanna River, I'm noticing a couple of things. One, it's cold. It's about 28 degrees out here. There's snow flying, and there's snow and ice on the ground, but we are finding ourselves in the midst of one of the first great insect emergence events of the year. The winter stoneflies are hatching, emerging, shedding their exoskeletons, leaving the water of the Susquehanna River, and now they're turning up all over the banks. It's a pretty cool spectacle. Let's take a close look at one of these winter stoneflies. I can see at least 5 winter stoneflies crawling around on top of the snow in about a 6-foot radius of where I stand. Here's one of the largest of them. You can see it's got the antennas, 6 legs, and wings on its back. And if we look at this one over here, you can see the 2-pronged tail that's typical of stoneflies. So 2-pronged tail, wings on the back, 6 legs, close to the water, probably a stonefly. The whole population of winter stoneflies will emerge from the river's banks about the same time, and once they shed their exoskeletons, they have little wings on their back. I haven't seen them doing much flying, but it's like they all leave the river at the same time. They're milling about, walking all over the snow and ice like they're gathering to have a nice big winter stonefly party. And there's some mixing and mingling that goes on at this party.
4 tails and 4 antennas, that can't be right. Let's get a side view of this one. And as it turns out, that's not 1 but 2 stoneflies. And this is some of that mixing and mingling that goes about at winter stonefly parties along the river's banks.
At the end of the party, the female stoneflies will head back to the edge of the water, go back to lay their eggs in the water, and that will complete their life cycle. We only see these winter stoneflies on the land a short time each year, and it is in the winter time, so they're aptly named winter stonefly. Now, the winter stoneflies, as well as other insects that live part of their lives in water, part on land, play a very critical role in the flow of nutrients in the ecosystem. Insects like winter stoneflies are one of the really cool energy links. They connect the nutrients that are held in the water through the decomposing leaf and stick matter that they eat in the water, and then that energy and nutrients are transferred through the animals that will eat the stoneflies that haven't managed to successfully make it back to the water after they've had their party. Even though it's only 28 degrees in late February with snow and ice on the ground, this spider is hoping to benefit from the winter stonefly emergence along the river's banks. There's a good chance that this spider is going to make a meal out of at least 1 or a few of the winter stoneflies before the day's end. Moving up in the food chain, here's someone that both the spider and the winter stoneflies had better watch out for. The American robins have been hanging around the banks of the Susquehanna the past couple of months, eating hackberries and grapes from the branches of the trees and the vines. But now, with the winter stonefly emergence, you can see this whole little river island is filled with both robins and starlings capitalizing on this feast of emerging insects. To bring it full circle, winter stoneflies acquire nutrients like nitrogen through the decaying organic matter like leaves that they eat while they are living under the water's surface. Birds like the American robin acquire the nutrients that they need by eating, you guessed it, nutrient-rich bugs. Let's follow the tracks of this American robin as we ponder what happens to those nutrients that once made up the insect's body after it has been eaten and digested by a robin. That's right, everybody poops. And the droppings of the American robin give nutrients back to the land where it can be used by trees and other plants. The fact that we have winter stoneflies at all is a testament to the relative good quality of the water of the Susquehanna. These tiny insects play an incredibly important role in the nutrient flow and support of the food webs along the river's banks here. And isn't it amazing that such a small insect could not only survive, but thrive on top of the snow in the dead of winter? Thanks for joining me along the banks of the Susquehanna River today. My hands are getting cold, so I'm going to end this video and wish you all a very good nature connection-filled day. See you next time.
Well, let me close this session by simply recognizing that the relationships that you saw highlighted in that video between the winter stonefly, the spider, the robins, the flow of nutrients, this is just one strand among thousands or millions of relational networks that exists in nature. You are a part of that. I'm a part of that. And I hope that at some point today, you're able to step outside and just revel in the truth that you and I are connected with this great big world where diversity really is the spice of life. Thank you.
Thanks, Rich. Very cool. I know I have seen those little critters, and I never knew what they were, and never realized they were the first insects of spring. And it always is so neat to see how the chain of energy flows and gets things moving. So as I said, we are starting a new focus for our worship time. It's a new month, a new focus for us. It is also the Christian season of Lent, which sort of lends itself towards having some kind of focus for those 40 days leading up to Easter. So that's kind of what we're doing. And I went around a little bit on what to call this series, and I ended up with Heart and Soul, SOLE. So we're talking about how those two things connect, our hearts and the soles of our feet. So not necessarily literally like how are they connected. You could talk to an acupuncturist about all the places on the soles of your feet and what they affect in your body. But what I'm wanting us to make the connection on is our beliefs, our feelings, our faith, and how do we connect that to our actions, to what we do with our feet, to where we go and how we live. And so I was really excited to remember that talk from A.J. Jacobs, and for some reason I didn't remember everything he talked about exactly, but I know I've shown that video to groups before. And so I went back and somehow I was reminded of it this week, and I watched it and I thought, this is exactly what we're talking about. He says it, he names it perfectly, that our actions actually affect our thinking. So, and he said he thought it was the other way around too. He thought he would have to change his mind about something and then his behaviors would change. But what he found in his experiment was that when he changed his behaviors and went through the motions thinking they were kind of ridiculous, he found his thinking started to shift. And even some of his beliefs were shifted because of his behaviors. So he kind of gave us a sermon this week, and I wanted to have all of the extra goodness of what he talked about in there because it was really good. But that point that he made about our behaviors changing our thinking is what I really want us to focus on for today. So I'm going to keep it short because he gave us so much good stuff. But that's where we're starting out this idea of how do we connect our beliefs and our actions. It actually starts with our actions. And I think really these past 2 years, the pandemic was sort of a shock to our whole systems, like our internal systems and of course our external systems. But it disrupted our routines and our rituals in a lot of ways. And in some ways, this was wonderful. It allowed us more time and space to focus on things we really loved, or, to go inward, or to learn something new, or make improvements in our lives. But then, of course, I think everyone experienced ways in which everything closing down really cut us off from those routines and rituals that tended to keep us grounded. And maybe we didn't even realize those things were keeping us grounded until they weren't there anymore. And I think this idea of groundedness is why spiritual practices are so important, because that's what we're really going to get into in the coming weeks, is this idea of spiritual practices. We have all kinds of practices besides spiritual, right? We have work practices, health practices, relational, cultural things that we all do, like you said, blowing out candles on a birthday cake. These are all practices or rituals, religious practices, traditions in our families. And these things that we do over and over every year or every day, these are the things that become our foundation. They're the reliable, steady things we can count on through the day. And so when we hit a period of catastrophe or anxiety, we need something to hold on to. I'll tell you, last weekend was so awesome. We had so much fun. We got the moms of Church in the Wild moms got together on Friday, and then we had our bowling teams for the Vines Garden Bowl got together on Saturday, and we had such a wonderful time. We had a great walk, and then all of a sudden, we got announcements from on high that things were changing, that masks weren't required, and all of that, starting out really high and getting hit with these sudden changes. I don't know if it's my Enneagram number or what, but I just went into kind of a tailspin. I really plummeted. I was feeling so good, and then all of a sudden I was anxious and scared and worried. And I knew I needed to find that anchor again. So I made a point that I had to go for a walk by Tuesday. I was just too high strung. I wasn't sleeping. I knew I needed that practice of moving my body outdoors. That was a thing I knew that I could rely on to help. I don't know why exactly, but I knew it would. And I knew I needed to connect with people. For me, that's something that helps. And that's the thing. We are all going to have different practices that are beneficial for us. So we have to sort of learn ourselves in this process too. And so thankfully, I've learned these things are helpful. And while they didn't fix the world, of course, they helped me handle the world. So we're gonna look at a variety of these spiritual practices over the next 6 weeks. Practices like prayer and music and rituals and food, all these things that almost are just such a part of our life we don't even think about. And again, none of them are going to fix the world, but they will help connect us to our Creator, that wild spirit that is love beyond measure. And as we know, love is that thing that's going to see us through any of our personal or collective storms. So we need these things. We need to work these regular activities that will help keep us connected to that great love. We need to have those in our lives. And that requires regular reminders. And I think for most of us, we find those reminders in nature, which I think is like the original testament from our Maker. But there's so many ways that we can connect with God in nature. And of course, we're going to need to be able to connect with God in times when we can't get out in nature. So we need other ways too. We need those routines that are going to feed our bodies, minds, our relationships, and our spirit. So, I make the same smoothie every morning that's good for my health. I also need to have some sort of daily routine that's good for my spiritual health. So that's what we mean when we're talking about spiritual practices. How do we feed our spirits or exercise them? Sometimes it's something that will challenge us. Like he was saying, if you want to be more compassionate, go help people in the hospital or wherever, and your behaviors will start to shift your thinking and beliefs. So we need these activities to make us go through the motions. That's okay. Going through the motions sometimes is all that will get us through from one day to the next, right? We got to go through the motions until our heads and our hearts can catch up, until we can find peace and connection and that reminder of the great love that surrounds us always. So think about it this week. That's where we're going to start, is to just think about what spiritual practices do you already have, or routines maybe that can turn into a spiritual practice with the right intention. I highly recommend, if you're interested in going deeper on this particular topic in general, Barbara Brown Taylor's An Altar in the World, where every chapter she talks about these mundane things and how they can be spiritual practices with the right intention. Anything can be. You know, giving the dog more water, washing your hands, anything that you do regularly, if you do it with a certain intention and start to connect something from your mind or your heart to that behavior, it will develop itself into a spiritual practice. And in fact, we are doing a spiritual practice right now, the practice of worship, of gathering together. So you're off to a great start. Think about your spiritual practices, what routines keep you going, even if you wouldn't consider it a spiritual practice. What keeps you going and fed in more ways than one, and think about that as even just considering it. Oh, this thing is a spiritual practice. It makes all the difference, and can really start to infiltrate your life in the ways like A.J. Jacobs is talking about, that are positive and that use these routines and rituals to bring something good to our lives. So my hope, of course, is as we do this, it will make us the truest form of ourselves, the people that we were created to be and that are most needed in the world to make the world the best place it can be for everyone. So we start within, and know that when we get right within, we can make the world right on the outside with each other. So that's where we're headed for these next 6 weeks leading up to an Easter celebration, which we'll get to have at Sky Lake together. We will continue every Sunday. We'll be there at 4 p.m. and we will have like a special Monday, Thursday dinner together in Binghamton to touch on the Last Supper and what that's all about, to learn more and to celebrate that for those who connect with the Christian tradition. So thanks, Marcia, for sharing that title again. It's an awesome book. And thanks, everybody, for sharing. And now, the intention is where it all begins. So Valerie is going to help us with that in some meditation.
Thank you. Some forms of meditation are verbal and others are silent. So as we open this series on different types of rituals, the meditation I want to offer today moves us from a meditation on words into a place of inner silence. And so I'll be using a line from the Psalms to help us with that. So as we begin, I invite you to find a posture you can hold for the next few minutes. Something that you can hold with ease, but will also allow you to remain alert and present. Take a moment to notice your surroundings, the ambient sounds or smells, the quality of the light in the room or the outdoors, any textures where your body contacts the outside world, the temperature. I invite you to close your eyes and in your own way to check in with your body. If it needs to be adjusted, you can make that adjustment now, or you can simply notice without changing anything where your body is at this present time. At this time, at your own pace, take 3 deep breaths to help your body to settle and rest. It can help to let your exhale be a little longer than your inhale. At this time, I invite you to hear the words of the psalmist and let them be an anchor during this time of meditation. Be still and know that I am God. Be still and know that I am God. Be still and know that I am. Be still and know that I am. Be still and know that I. Be still and know that I. Be still and know that. Be still and know that. Be still and know. Be still and know. Be still and. Be still and. Be still. Be still. Be. Be. Having focused your mind's attention on these sacred words and the sacred silence that follows, I invite you to give your mind a chance to let it wander wherever it wants and be free. If it feels right to you at this time, offer yourself gratitude for listening to the words and the silence, and to the Spirit who gives us wisdom through words and silence. As we conclude our time of meditation, allow your awareness to come back to your body and back to the space where you sit. And whenever you're ready, you may slowly open your eyes.
Yes, thank you, Valerie. And we are giving thanks. We take this opportunity after that wonderful meditation to connect with gratitude. And I loved what we heard about that as we share our gratitude, we realize how much there is to be thankful for in the world and a time when so much seems hard and hopeless. It's ever more important to give thanks. So feel free to share in the chat what it is you're thankful for this week in particular. Yes, that is a big plus, to have wonderful people in your life, especially during these times. Yeah, I am definitely thankful for the weather today. I know it's not going to stick around for now, but it's a great reminder of what's coming. We said on our walk this morning that transitions are messy, and we can see that as winter transitions to spring. It's messy and muddy, and it's okay. But we know we go on to good things, that spring comes and new life comes. I'm glad you're feeling that love, Sue. Certainly from us as well. I love and condolences. So we give thanks, and we know that as we share what we've been given, as we use our lives, our energy, our time, share it with the world, we can increase the good that there is in the world. So one of the things we've been up to is a challenge. If you aren't on social media, you might not have seen that we're doing the 40 Days of Bags challenge. So this was my bag full of plastic that I had collected for 40 days. And I've started over for the season of Lent. So we're encouraging folks, if you have the room, to find a big bag and just keep putting every piece of plastic that comes through your home in that bag, whether it's frozen food or vegetables or the bag inside boxes, all of these things, the plastic lid on different things, all of that can be recycled at the grocery store where they collect bags. Yeah, I guess it depends on how you look at it, who the winner is, if you recycle the most or if you just use the least amount of plastic. But right, everything that we get is wrapped in plastic. Packages have plastic air pockets in them. So all of that can be recycled. Collect it. If you don't have the space, take a picture every week of the bag and see how it adds up. And you can encourage your friends to join you in this by taking a picture of your starting bag, so we can see the before and after. And it doesn't have to be perfect. We'll talk about this more as a spiritual practice. Maybe this is a good spiritual practice for us, to collect all the plastic that we use. It doesn't have to be perfect. It doesn't have to be a full 40 days, but try it out. See how much comes through your home, and it'll be a way for us to share with politicians and the manufacturers to say, we need to stop producing plastic if we want if we want to rid the world of plastic pollution. We just have to stop making it. Because we could, even in New York State, we've banned plastic shopping bags, but this was still the amount of plastic that our family used in 40 days. So we have a lot of work to do. And this is one way of highlighting it. And like I said, it could be a fun spiritual practice. So as we look towards the week ahead, feel free to set an intention, word or a phrase that you want to guide you over these next 7 days. Share it in the chat if you want. It might inspire somebody else. Gentle with myself. That's such a good one, such a hard one. I think days like today make me think about holding on to hope. Finding something. Yeah, Santa, that was perfect timing. Finding something to be hopeful about each day. And these warm days give me hope for spring. Feel free to keep sharing your words, no matter what word or phrase you choose. I do hope you'll live intentionally and start to look at your routines intentionally and how they might become a spiritual practice. So we're going to hear one final song, and we'll share our blessing now, and then feel free to stick around and unmute if you want to chat for a little bit. So, may the deep peace of running wave to you, deep peace of flowing air to you, deep peace of the quiet earth to you, deep peace of the shining stars to you, and deep peace of the source of peace be with you.
All right, it's time for our last song for worship today. Again, if you have an instrument hanging around, whether that's a shaker, your knees, or an instrument that you like to play in the key of C, feel free to join us for our final song, Peace, Salaam, Shalom.